Hey, Midtown Podcast. Excited to be back with y'all with another week. Austin, my man. Glad to be back with you again, as always.
Always, man.
Always, bud. And we got Little Jay here with us today. So, Little Jay.
Little J.
Hey, I'm glad you're here. I've been
go.
waiting to say that. Yep. No, we call you Big J, and that's okay.
We do, man.
I'm okay with that. You know, I gotta be. I can't not be. But man, just the honor to sit next to you and doing life with you the past years, man. It's going by pretty quick.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be able to be here today and to kind of share my story and bring us into that a little bit.
And the craziest way we met was, what year was that?
That was 2017.
2017. I was at a little church in walks Jay Haley, and you're big now. I feel like you were
I was
bigger.
then,
You were
yeah.
even bigger then.
That's crazy
You
to think
walked in,
about.
and I was like, "All right, whoa, hey bro, what's up?" I dapped him up, and then he tells me this weird story about you were working at Carm.
Yes.
And
at the
a
homeless
lady
shelter.
who knew me met
Yes.
you and was like, "There's a guy you gotta meet."
Yes.
And you come walking in,
And I came walking in.
I don't know where it went from there, but we were just I felt
amazing.
like just friends pretty instantly.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know, man. It was a weird experience, but we'll get to that.
You were bigger than you are now. It's crazy.
Then this fool had me come work out with him one day.
Yeah, I remember that.
And listen, man, I've seen people lift some weights before, but like they get on the bench with like, what was it, like 375, and he was just like
15
flat
reps.
10 times or 12
Yeah.
times. Like, I've never seen that in all my life.
Take two of the plates off, please.
Yeah, take it all off. It's with bar. I don't even know. Like, yeah, but
It was amazing, man. It's been an amazing journey, man. I was thinking about it the other day, and it's coming up on 8 years
Jeez.
that we've known each other, man. And since I moved to Knoxville, and just all the doors that God has opened and all the different places we've been as a church, just you and I personally, as we've walked the streets of Knoxville everywhere.
We learned some stuff, man.
Yeah.
A couple episodes, we'll get into all this stuff, but a couple episodes back, we were talking about like hearing the voice of God and walking. And I told this story about a guy who basically came to me, just was saying he heard from the Lord this, and this, and you were the guy that went with me that day that I referenced.
Yes.
And so I feel like we've been on a journey that's been pretty unique together.
Absolutely.
But as you know, most people watching this, this is Midtown Podcast, but a lot of people that are watching this right now, we do life together, and they're gonna see you sometimes the mic on a stage, and you know we're processing the word together. But I don't know if they know a lot about you or the story about your family and just where you've come from. And so I just thought maybe you should bring us in a little bit, man.
Absolutely.
Like, where are you from, first off?
I'm originally from Lynchburg, Virginia. Born and raised there. All of my family, most of my family are still in that same area. Situation growing up, I grew up with 2 brothers and 1 sister. I'm the youngest of 4. My oldest brother, he was shot and killed when I was 12. It was a drug deal going bad, basically. My second brother, that's younger than him, my oldest brother, he was just in and out of prison his whole life, you know. And just around that area where we grew up, that's kind of the theme. It's either you played sports and tried to go to college, or you sold drugs and kind of just hung around, you know. And that was kind of the case for our family. And just my parents, they, you know, struggled with alcohol, and my dad struggled with drugs and all of that kind of growing up. And the thing that was crazy was that you really didn't know that there was issues there because everybody in that neighborhood dealt with the same things. Wow. You know, and I didn't realize it until I left to go to college and realized, like, oh, this is actually the first time I went to a house where we sat at a table and had dinner together was when I went to college, and I went and stayed with one of my football friends that I played ball with. And we sat there at the table, and I'm like, I was very awkward and very weird because I had never done it before. I didn't know what it looked like. And so all of that, man, is just kind of what I kind of grew up in, domestic violence and that type of thing. And started there. But, yeah, and I eventually got to a place where my mom died at 14. She had a brain aneurysm, and I walked in on that. So I was leaving football practice one day. I got home, and she was there in the floor, and I could tell something was wrong because she couldn't talk. Like, so the aneurysm led to a stroke, which leads to being paralyzed, basically. And so I called 911. It took a while for them to get there because we live, when I say Lynchburg, Virginia, it's a small city. But if you live on the outskirts of Lynchburg, Jay went to Liberty University, so he knows a little bit about this area. Anything outside of Lynchburg, you're looking at farmland. You're looking at, miles and miles of farmland. And so we live down in the country. And so for an ambulance to get there, it would take some time. And so while we were waiting, I remember it like it was yesterday, man. I picked her up and took her to her bedroom, set her on the bed, was waiting on the ambulance to get there. I was just, asking her if she was okay. She couldn't talk, of course, but at 14, I really didn't know too much about what to do. And they eventually got there, and right before they took her off, she had told me that she loved me and that I'll do great things. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant at all. And she drove off in that ambulance, and then she fell into a coma, never to wake up again. And so a lot of my teenage years, I was actually resentful against God because I was like, why would you take my mom from me? But as I became adult and as I, surrendered my life to Christ and, later on, it got to a place where I realized like it was actually a blessing to be able to have that conversation with her before she left, So lost my mom at 14. And right after that, that's kind of where, for me, life got to a place of I had to grow up really quick. My dad was on drugs, and so I got to a place where I started selling drugs, right? I was like, I got to figure out a way to keep Jordans on my feet, keep the house, and all these things that I thought I needed. And so I did that while playing sports. My high school coach, who I'm really good friends with, he was the one that kind of told me, you need to think about going and playing college football instead of staying around here. Because my mindset was kind of set on just staying here, taking care of my dad and doing what I'm doing. And after that conversation with him, my coach, I ended up going to UVA Wise to play college football. Best decision I ever made. It was the first time where I got outside of that neighborhood environment and saw that there was more to life. And that changed everything. That changed everything for me. After doing that, tried to get to the league, tried out for the Ravens, the Colts, a couple of football teams, did the post-combine. It didn't work out. I played at an NAIA school, D2 school, so it was very hard to get to the NFL from there. And when that happened, I was like, man, I really don't want to go back home, right? So I joined the military. And I did that. I did the Army Reserves for 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I got a question for
Yes.
you. When I think a lot of people have similar story as
Yes.
you.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think more people have a story in the background that's playing out that nobody really knows about, right?
Yes.
And my question for you is, what's the person like that was the greatest blessing to you in the season where there's a story playing in the background that nobody knows about?
Yeah.
Who do you say, and what is that person like?
I would say it would have to be my grandmother for me, because in the background this whole time, I now realize it now in retrospect, but at that time I didn't realize it. She is a prayer warrior, and the power of prayer and what she speaks and how she speaks over her grandchildren, over her children, all of that, man. And looking back, I know that my grandma, you can find her at church 6 days out of the week. She was there for prayer service. She was there for Bible study. She was there for all these different things. And growing up, I never really understood it. But I had an opportunity to go home this last, 2 months ago. And her Bible, which I've never really looked at or seen before, her Bible was sitting on the kitchen table. And I opened it and I saw all these notes over the years that she's put on each page, man. And it brought tears to my eyes because in there is these prayers. There are prayers about her family, about her children, about her grandchildren, and things like that. And so many times I saw my name in it. I saw my name in it and never knew. Never had a clue. So I would say my grandmother would be that person that was just always lifting me and praying for me, even when I didn't know it. Yeah, it was a blessing.
It's good.
It's a blessing.
I think about what Paul said to Timothy when he was like, "I see the faith that's in your grandmother."
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, and
That's
I think
it.
That's a really interesting.
That's so good.
That's what I see. There's some kind of thing that's really
the power of prayer, man. And there's so many people, like you're saying, Jay, that I've talked to that they said, you know, out of nowhere, God showed up in this way and that way, and to find out later on in life that a parent was praying for them, a friend was praying for them, somebody somewhere was sending up all these prayers. And they came through, basically.
That's awesome, man.
It's a blessing.
So you go to the military.
Yeah.
You got any questions? No. All right. Well, I'm gonna keep going. So you go off military. How many years you do military?
6 years.
6 years in the military.
6 years in the military.
I thought it was quicker than that.
No, it was 6. It was 6. Every bit of it. 2011 to 2017.
Wow.
I know it to this day. It was February 2nd when I swore in, and 2017, and then it was February 2nd, February 2nd of 2011 is when I swore in, and then February 2nd of 2017 is when I got out.
So from that place to just the decision to move into another way.
Yes.
Where does that begin for you?
Yes. So a lot of this that I'm sharing now is kind of in retrospect, right? So my mindset at that time was so many people back home, and so many people can relate to this. So many people back home when I was going through college and I was playing football, and when that word got back home that scouts were coming to see me, NFL pro scouts were coming to watch me at this small D2 school, right? My sophomore year, a lot of people began to get hopeful, right? And so where I grew up, there's no hope. So if you find one person to put hope in, you put everything in it. So every time I came home, the drunk on the corner to my grandma at church, everybody was like, have you heard anything yet? Are you going to the NFL and this and that, right? You know that feeling. Jay, you know that feeling. So that was happening to me, right? And that's why I have such a passion for student athletes, because there's a weight there that a lot of people don't really recognize or know that's there. Anyway, so because of that pressure, that was one of the reasons why when I didn't go to the NFL, I didn't want to go back home because I was seen as a failure.
Wow.
Right? Even though I got a degree, and there's 2% of the people where I'm from that has a scholarship to go play sports somewhere and then get a degree, right? I didn't want to go back, so I joined the military. And while I was in the military, I realized like I still don't have that level of success so that when I go home, I feel like I'm somebody.
Wow.
That opens the door. That was the tactic of the enemy, to open the door for me to go back into selling drugs again. This is how it was set up. This is how it was staged for me, the bait that was set. And so because of that way of thinking at the time, I was like, man, I'm going to go sell drugs, right? And at that place, because I've done it when I was a teenager, I took all the things that from it that I knew didn't work, and I only took with me the things that would work. And I set out to start selling drugs. So I flew to California and found me 2 or 3 people that I knew sell marijuana. And I started to connect with them. And one thing led to another, to a point I was bigger than I have ever wanted to be. I got to a point where I was doing too much, basically. And even in that, because I was chasing that success, in my mind, success looked like having whatever car you want, having the house you want, all these things, right? Now I can go back home. It was funny. I wouldn't go home until I started having money. When I had money, I go home, right?
Wow.
And that created a whole nother thing, because now people are like, oh, he made it.
Wow.
Hey, Jay, can you lend me a couple $100 for this and for that? That became the story, right? That led to me feeling more depressed than I've ever felt in my life, feeling more burdened than I've ever felt in my life, trying to help everybody, but not having a clue of what I was doing and how to help. The blind leading the blind, basically. And it was 2017. If you can imagine this, 2017. I'm sitting in a 4,000 square foot house. I grew up in a 700 square foot home. I'm sitting in a 4,000 square foot house. I have a pool that was just put in the back. I have any car I wanted. At the time, I'm driving a BMW i8, right? Had any car I wanted at the time. I had Corvettes, had motorcycles, any girl I wanted at the time, and all these things. I had all this, right? And had all the money that I even knew what to do with. And I was more suicidal in my mind than I've ever been in my life, to a point that I couldn't even control my own thoughts. I would think about ways to end it all, and I would say, hey, I need to stop thinking about that, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Wow. That was a scary place for me. Yeah. And it was in that place, out of nowhere. I wasn't reading the Bible. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't thinking about God, but it was in that place that he entered into my heart in such a way, Austin, in such a way that I fell to my knees and I said, God, I surrender everything to you. I give it all to you. And I was crying hysterically. On that day, I got up and I said, I'm done with it all. I don't want any of it. Got rid of everything that I had. Everything, every aspect of it. Wow. Started calling my friends that same day and said, hey, God is real. I just experienced him. I'm not doing this anymore. They all thought I was crazy. They all thought I had smoked something or done some type of drug. And they're like, Jay has just lost his mind. He's gone. He's gone. And, you know, that came with all the stigmas of, oh, it's just a phase and you're just in this wave and that, all these things, you know.
Wasn't that like that day that you said that happened? Like, I thought I remember you telling me that did you watch a video?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
You watched the video, right?
Somebody randomly some random person sent me this video to watch, and they said, hey, check out this video. I thought of you when I watched it, right? I put it in, and you're gonna laugh at this. So it's a song by Slim Thug. It's called Church. But in the middle of it, Joel Osteen is preaching. And this is someone who hadn't sat in a church in a very long time, since he was a kid with his grandma. Yeah. Joel Osteen gets on there, and in the middle of this song, he says, God is calling you to something greater, but you would have to leave the people that you're hanging around now in order to receive the call that he has. Austin, I got up and ran. That's when I ran to the bedroom, fell on my knees, and I felt the anointing of God come over my life. 100%. 100%.
Bro, that gives me like rich young ruler vibes, you know? Like, drop what you're doing, leave everything.
All of it.
That's what it was. He came to my booth that day. If we want to talk about, Levi? Harboring. Yeah.
From this week,
yeah. If we want to talk about harboring, Jesus met me at my booth that day.
Yeah.
And he said, follow me. And I said, without a shadow of a doubt, I want you and nothing else. I let everything go. Started calling people. I knew it was real for me when I started calling people and professing that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Wow.
I'm telling you, man, like it confirms to me, like, I don't know how you get there. Like, I can't even tell you how it happens, but when you really get to the place of that faith that you're like the true yes in the inner person of not a little bit, not a, hey, just get me to heaven, not like,
no,
dude, come into my heart and you get a peace. And then it's like this place of like faith that you're like, I'm leaving it all and it's all you. I'm just telling you, that was the great exchange for me.
Yes.
Personally, I resonate so hard with your story, and I don't know, but when I think my encouragement is when people find themselves in the place where they're feeling most distant, most discouraged, like most upset, most burdened, it's in that place where you're actually, I believe, beginning to realize what's really true.
That's it.
Like, it's actually true. but I've been so distracted I couldn't experience what's really true because I was believing something that wasn't quite true.
That's it.
You know? And
That's
then when you finally get to the place where you're like, I actually believe this ain't it. And then you hear something that says, I think that might be it. I'm going all that way. There is an exchange.
Yes, absolutely.
And a heavenly exchange is given.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how you get there. I don't understand it.
Yes, me neither. I try to come up with you know, early on you try to come up with ways of like trying to explain this to someone of like what happened. How did it just all of a sudden? And I can't say anything other than all of a sudden it happened.
Yeah.
You know, and I said yes that day. And I tell Jay this all the time because we're similar stories of like a moment of desperation. God meets us there, and then our whole life changes. We begin to walk the path that he has for us. And I tell people all the time, Austin, I'm still living out the word and that experience of 2017 today. I'm still praying and laying hands on people and encouraging people based off an experience that I had. It was my road to Damascus moment that I had, like Paul lit, you know, the rest of his ministry was due to that one moment where Jesus met him on that road. And for me, it was the same way. Yeah. It's the same way.
And I don't know if it happens like that for everybody. I've talked to a lot of people like, I've never had that. And I'm like, I don't know if you have to. I have no idea. I think some people are just bent a little bit different toward experiencing something like that. Yeah. And I think if you're just serving faithfully and you've given Jesus your life and you're doing the same thing, like I think we're in it together. But
absolutely,
I do resonate really with your story in that. But then so as you continue down the road a little bit, you have this encounter, and then what do you do next?
Ooh, so a lot of times what I've learned is that when you do go all in for God, the enemy is going to turn up as well. Like there's a moment where you have to go into the wilderness. If you look at Jesus's story, right after he got baptized, the word says that the Holy Spirit led him into the wilderness. And I think that was the moment that set the stage for me next, because a few months later, I get a call that I'm being under investigation, right? And to me, at the first moment of this, I wiped the sweat from my brow and I said, whew, well, I'm out. I'm done. I don't have any more drugs. So there's no way that I can go to jail for something that I didn't get caught in the act of doing. And to my little knowledge that I knew about how things work, it was a federal case. Federal cases are a lot different than state cases. Federal case, there's no stipulations to how long they can sit on something, right? So they had been sitting on this for a while, and I guess just, you know, when it got to a place where they were ready to investigate me and to bring my case up, right? So they had information from when I was selling drugs that they've been sitting on. And I get that call, so immediately I call a lawyer and say, hey, this is what's going on. Can you help me to figure out what we need to do next and all of that? And he called me down. He said, hey, come to the office. Let's chat. I go in. I'm still thinking at this point, there's nothing that can happen to me. God saved me in the nick of time, right? Type of thing. And I get there and they said, hey, this is a pretty big deal. And I said, oh boy. He said, it's not the state, it's the United States of America that's after you. For trafficking marijuana and for all the amount of money that you've put into basically money laundering, all the money that you've used for ill-gotten gains to buy real estate properties, right? My heart just dropped. I said, oh man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do next? And so this plays out over a course of basically 2 to 3 years. And in that, we finally get to a place where we go to sentencing, right? We get to sentencing, and I'm so grateful that this brother went with me, man. We went to court together, and that was a very unique story as well. So we go, and we're praying in the car before we get there, and we go inside, and the judge is like kind of just throwing all these things out. And the thing that hurts about that is that they don't actually know you as a person. Because had he known me personally, which I understand, it's a case to the next case to the next case. So I get that. But had he known me, maybe there would have been more leniency there. But he basically said, hey, you did the crime. Here's the punishment for that crime. Sentenced me to 2 years, 24 months in a federal prison. And he hit the gavel. Boom. That's what it is. And we leave that day. And I was able to leave with him and serve my sentence at a later date. And I remember that walk out of the courtroom. Nobody said anything.
I
didn't say anything.
6 years.
No, it was 2. It was 2.
Was it?
He wanted to do. He said, in my heart, I want to do more, but I'm just going to do 24. So we're walking out of the courthouse, and nobody's saying anything really. Then we get to the car, and you're like, hey, big guy, you want me to drive? And I'm like, yeah, you should definitely drive us back, man. Okay. So I can sit in this. But I was encouraged, man, to have someone show up at the courthouse with you. It's amazing, man. What it does, you don't feel alone. Like, you talk about it a lot from the stage of we're in this together. And in that moment, man, because I'm not really good at asking for help. I don't know how to do it. I haven't strengthened that muscle yet. And for you to say, man, I'll show up with you, man. I don't know what all is going to happen, but I'll be there with you. And you did that for me, and I appreciate it, man. Yeah. Just showing up.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
You know, one of my friends this week, I was having a conversation with him, and it's something I want to continue to grow in, because the scriptures tells us, like, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. And he said, you know, if I spent my life just rejoicing when you rejoice and weeping when you weep, he said, I wouldn't have much time for any of the other nonsense, like talking about you when you're struggling.
Oh, that's so good.
And I really wonder, like, when we talk about just loving one another with, like, as if it were myself.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing that I really think about it a lot, man, because we had done life together. I appreciated what you were to me in the same way, but I feel like we were a blessing to one another in that season of life.
Yes.
And to go with you in that time was sorrowful with me or in me, but it was also like something I had a great joy in doing because of my love for you as my brother, you know? And it's just been hitting me lately. I just really want to continue to do that with people, because I think it may be the most important, like, if you want to use a real, like, Christian term, is like my ministry. My greatest ministry in life is to love the people right around me.
That's it. Absolutely.
And that's literally what it is.
Absolutely.
And that's a good ministry, because that ministry has ripple effects.
Yes.
That carries far beyond a sermon that I'll ever preach or teach him something out of the word, read you a verse. I mean, there's powerful importance, but when that comes alive and becomes embodied, there's something that breaks into this realm, like we talk about.
Yes.
And I have this encounter with him that's fresh, and it affects my life. And you'll find yourself in the encounters with Jesus where you're like, I'm more compelled when it comes back around to actually step into that myself.
Yes.
When it's been given to me first, you know? And so I was really given that word and encouraged by it, but I was just thinking about, guys, like, what would it be like if we felt like the greatest win in our life was to rejoice with those people who are rejoicing and weep with them when they're weeping, and really be there for each other in our times of great success and great challenge.
That's it.
And that's the wonderful life to live.
That's it. The highs and the lows, because we can flip it to, that was a season of sorrow and we mourned together, but then you flip it to watching you baptize Blakely, watching you baptize Emery, and then you watching me baptize Ariana, my daughter, and how we celebrated and we were joyful in that moment, like doing life together.
Yeah.
That's what it is, doing life together.
And I think that in life, when we say that word life, another word that is important is longevity and perseverance.
Yes.
When you persevere through stuff together,
man,
like what that creates in and through you. Because I think about not just friendship that we have, but when you walk through some stuff together, there's some kind of connection that when your life joins with somebody else in that same heart of love, the impact that more than one person has, to others
Yes.
now increases as well. Like
Absolutely.
something moves in that realm that I'm still discovering and figuring out. But like when you persevere with people, and I've seen it on multiple levels,
Yes.
I think it creates something that we were always designed to experience and walk in, a power that is unmatched.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
that takes some work and challenge, but
Absolutely.
worth it.
It
From the-
surpasses all.
From the heart of supernatural unity, which everybody desires.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Yes.
like when you see it, you're like, what is that?
And what did it take to get there?
Yeah.
You know, rejoicing and weeping.
Yeah.
That's it.
Both.
Yeah.
That's
It,
it.
it took a lot of that.
Yeah.
I remember, if we fast forward just a tad to where I went to prison, right? I remember the first call I did home from a federal prison to my life group.
Yeah.
To my life group, and hearing them on the other end weeping,
Yeah.
tears on the speakerphone as I'm talking to them from this federal prison of how much they love me, how much they care for me, how much they're praying for me, and all these things. That kind of, we can use that as a caveat into like the body of Christ, right? There was a particular day, Austin, when I'm in the feds, that just one of those weeks where they locked everything down. If they find contraband, they shut the whole thing down. You can't use the phone, no TVs, none of that, right? And this particular week, that phone call is 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes, and that's all you get. That 15 minutes is what I lived for every day. It was my 15 minutes of being away from that place, right? And I didn't get it this particular week. And so it was, by the time I got to Thursday, man, I was prayed up and all of that, but it was hard. And I said, God, I need you to show up in a mighty way. You know what he does? His mom, Jennifer Smith, Jim Vincent, Tim Haley, and Otho. I may be missing one person, and I'm sorry if I am. They all wrote letters to me. And it just so happens that particular week, Austin, I get all four of them at the same time. And their words of encouragement on that paper, bro, oh my goodness. It was exactly what I needed. I felt like Paul when he was ministering to Timothy from a window, right? Like that moment was the thing that said, all right, Jay, you're not forgotten. You're not alone. They're with you. They're praying for you. And what happens next is just so amazing. If y'all are ready, I can go into it a little bit. So judge sentences me to 24 months. And with federal sentencing, you're going to do 85% or more. Like the minimum is 85%. But the thing is, whatever God blesses, nobody can curse, right? So what ends up happening, I get there and I get to a mindset from God, I don't want to go, to God, if I'm going, please have me to have a mindset of being sent to go so that I can witness and tell all the good things that you're doing. And that's what happens. Revival breaks out at this prison. At 8:30 every night, people from Hawaii to Chicago, from Aryan Nation to Bloods and Crips, sitting in a circle or standing in a circle. I call it prayer meeting night every night. They stand in a circle and we go around the room and we just say, hey, what does God mean to you? What does God mean to you? And each person is sharing their personal stories of what God has done in their life and what God means to them, right? That also leads to 2 prison guards, the 2 that stand there to make sure there's no fights or nothing crazy going on. They got led to Christ too. Whoa. They started asking me questions about who God is and how do you see him this way. We started praying, asking God to allow a mass exodus to happen, right? 2 months later, Austin, there's a memorandum that comes down from the federal government that says, due to COVID, because I'm in prison during COVID, right? Due to COVID, if you're a nonviolent offender and if it's a first-time offense, you can be released to go home. I saw 7 men leave that prison that had 10 plus years left on their sentence. It was their first offense and it was a nonviolent offense. I saw them go home, but not only did I see them go home, I saw them going home weeping and praising the Father for what he did. That was amazing. That part. And the particular job I had, I was the last inmate that they would see before they got on the bus to go to wherever they were going. And I would pray and lay hands on each one of them before they left. They let me do that. It was an amazing thing to see, to witness that. And then myself, I witnessed 7 men leave, and then my number came up, and they said, Mr. Haley, it's your turn. You can leave. And I just...
Did you ever fight through any of the time where they were leaving and you weren't?
Absolutely. Really? Absolutely. See, because I'm at the window. Like, you're at the window, and you see where freedom is.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I'm happy for you.
I'm so happy for you. but I gotta go back in here and deal with the same things I deal with every day, you know? And but it was still a blessing. And there's 4 out of the 7 that I still communicate with and keep up with and all of that, one of which started a church. Wow. He's pastoring a church in Savannah, Georgia. Like, he's just on fire for God, and God is doing so much for him and his family, and it's such a blessing, man. And I it's one of those things where I was just telling you, the last 8 years of my life has been so many things, but in all of it, the thing that I love the most is that I'm even more close with the Father. Like, I'm drawn closer to him. And now I see him truly as my dad, and not just some big God that sits in the heavens and sends down orders of this and that. But no, like, my dad. That's my dad. It's cool. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I keep thinking about, well, this morning I was reading in Philippians 3, but it was like you said, like, road to Damascus moment like that. But then, like, what you just shared was like when the earthquake hit the jail, and they were like gonna leave, and then the jailer was like, I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah.
They're like, no, don't do that. We'll do it. And then the Lord paved the way, but then he was baptized, him and his family baptized. But it was just like earlier what you said. I read this morning when Paul is like, if anyone thinks he has grounds for confidence in flesh, I have more. Circumcised on the 8th day of the nation of Israel. And then it goes down, and he says, but everything that was a gain to me, I've considered to be a loss just because of Christ.
Absolutely.
More than I also consider everything to be a loss in view of the surpassing value of knowing Christ my Lord. Because of him I have suffered the loss of all things and consider them as dung, so that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having righteousness of my own from the law, but what is through faith in Christ.
That's it, my friend. That is it, my friend.
Read that this morning, and I was like, oh, okay. Lord.
That is it. It was for this moment.
Yeah.
That is it, my friend. That is it.
It's so good. I think, man, as we think about ministry, I'm struck by the people who wrote you letters, you know?
Random. Like,
they had no idea.
They had no idea that it would do what it did.
No.
They had none. And when I got back, one of the very first things, my mission, the very first day back to that church, at that time when I got home, we were at North Star. One of the first things I had on my heart to do, as soon as I went through those doors, I needed to find Mama Jen, I need to find Otho, I need to find Jim, I need to find Tim Haley. Because those 4 people, like, they don't understand. And I went to all 3 of them. I said, hey, come over here. I got to tell y'all something. And as I'm talking to them, tears, because I went back to the moment. I went back to the moment where I sat there and was like, God, I need you. And he showed up in such a loving way, showing us what the body of Christ is supposed to be like, encouraging those when they need encouragement, mourning with those that are mourning, be joyful with those that are joyful. You know, it's just a blessing.
I think about the scripture where Jesus is talking, and it's a little bit of a sobering passage, because he's referring to some of the people who he said, I came to you and I asked for this, and you didn't visit me in prison. You didn't.
Yeah.
And he goes to those others. He says, you guys did this. And they're like, when the heck did we do any of that? And they didn't think it mattered. Yeah. Like, it was just the life.
It was just the life.
And I think, you know, in all of our lives, I think we have this imagination of what it is to, like, follow Jesus and live this life of ministry that's grand. And his idea is the things that are, it's real life, it's normal, and it might not even feel like it's doing anything.
Absolutely.
It's just faithfully doing the loving act that he called us to do to our brothers and sisters or person next to you right where you are, you're just living life right with the people with you. And that's the thing he's called us to, is like just faithfulness.
That's it. Absolutely.
And I think if we just saw the wonder in just the little things that we do every day, I wonder how much joy and wonder we would begin to have and experience in just living life in our design call. Just
Yes.
don't get past the living life.
Yes.
And this is the life we're called to.
That's it.
And it's a life worth living. And you start seeing the ripple effects eventually, and they're massive, and they have giant waves that are created.
And every once in a while, God will bless you with that opportunity to hear some of the fruit of which you've sown into, And that was one of those moments for them. They didn't know that. When they wrote that, they didn't know that it was going to be the thing that like encouraged me to continue in the ministry and to continue in the faith. But when I got home and shared that with them, wow, you could see it all over them of like just gratitude of never would have known.
How much time had passed from when they wrote when you got those letters to when you told them?
Right around a year's time. And so that was another thing, like the time in between, because they went on to 8 different things or 20 different things by that point. And me coming home and saying that to them, I could just tell that it blessed their spirit, but I needed them to know. On top of my life group wrote me letters, my wife and my kids, of course, everybody, my in-laws, that was the person that I forgot. Debbie and Joey, my in-laws, Debbie wrote me all the time. And her words of encouragement were so needed. But the thing is, it's not like a text message. Yeah. She writes it, she sends it. It may be 2 or 3 weeks before I get it because of how the system works and all of that. They got to check it make sure there's no contraband and all this stuff in it. So, but every letter that was sent, it was received when it needed to be received. It was a blessing. It really was.
What's your encouragement, man, as you look forward to the future?
Yes.
For everybody who's watching.
Yes.
All got our different stories where stories are playing in the background. You know?
My greatest encouragement, man, for anyone that is just walking with the Father, I pray that they just continue to lean in and trust Him in every situation. I'm learning to trust Him with every aspect of my life. And I think the journey is with Him. He's holding my hand. I shared this with Jay a while back. If you can imagine for a moment, breaking boxes with God is what I call it. And it's my story. It's my life story. Since 2017, when I said yes to Him, He's been walking with me, holding my hand, going box to box, and we're smashing the boxes together. Of the box that I have Him in, of where he can only do these things, or he can only do this and that. So He's walking with me and showing me gently, hey, the federal government is not greater than my word. And when I release you from prison, you're going to be released. Smash that box. You know what I mean? Generational curses that you think you have, and strongholds that you think have all parts of you. Let's go together, guide you through, and we're going to smash that box together. Yeah. He's going to show up in a powerful way. And so my encouragement to people is, as you continue to walk with the Father, continue to learn how to trust Him in every aspect of your life. Give Him every part of it. Give Him every part of it. It's good. Yeah. It's a blessing. Man, it's good. So good.
Well, man, I thank you so much for just being here and sharing your story, man. And like I said, one of the greatest honors of my life.
Yes. Thank you. Thank y'all. It's an honor to be here. These two, what y'all are doing, I'm just praying that it continues to step in the light. I prayed over you maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, if you remember, and had a strong vision over you're going to be a wave for this realm, in the realm of podcasts, in the realm of social media. Like, God is going to use you as a light there, and people are going to be drawn to the light, and you're pushing out the truth. You're pushing out Jesus. Like, that's what it is you're showing them the face of Jesus. It's amazing. It's amazing. So it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's a blessing, man.
Yeah.
Well, we encourage you guys. Thanks for being with us today. And if you got questions, comments, thoughts, whatever, just let us know.
Yeah.
And we'd love to continue the conversation.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, bud.
Yeah. Thank you guys. This is a blessing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Blessing. We'll see y'all next episode.